Hi, this is Marisa Portuondo with Portuondo Law Firm, and today I am here with Suhaill Morales, who is an amazing employment attorney, and she works with the law firm of Allen, Norton, and Blue. Her office is located in Coral Gables, but I know the law firm has multiple offices in Florida. So hi, Suhaill, how are you doing?
Hi, Marissa. A little crazy during these hectic times for all of us, but I'm good and I'm really happy to be on here with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, taking the time. As you know, I work with business owners as you do. And I know everyone's kind of freaking out right now with everything that's happening in light of the coronavirus pandemic. Not only are people worried about cash flow, but they're also worried about employment laws, especially given that a new one was just passed, which is going to have, a huge impact on employers and employees. Now, I want people who are watching to understand that you work exclusively with employers, and so you are the perfect person to speak to about how this is going to affect business owners.
Yeah, and that's a big deal because I know that it's going to affect us all, but there are a lot of business owners who have employees, and it really is going to have a huge impact, especially these new laws that are being passed on our businesses.
Yeah, I agree. And, we deal with, very minor employment issues every once in a while at the firm, but it's certainly not our, bread and butter. And obviously, ethically, we're not going to be giving clients advice on things that we're not 100% sure on. So, we definitely wanted to reach out to an expert, and that's why I contacted you, because you are just such a badass, for lack of a better word, in this subject area.
Thank you, and you're too kind, and you're an amazing attorney, and I'm really glad to have you in my support group. But these are very novel times, and I've been practicing employment defense law for at least 10 years now, and some of the issues that we're seeing now and that we're going to see come up, we haven't seen in our recent history. So it is important that you have someone with at least the background in employment to know how some of these matters are going to affect businesses, even if we might not know the nuances to the new laws that are being passed. We understand the effects that it has previously had and can assist you with that.
Exactly. And I think it's really important, especially for, excuse me, for people outside of the legal industry to understand there is a huge difference between an employment and labor attorney who represents employees and an employer-based, employment attorney like you. So you basically, go to businesses, and I know you do trainings and you do employment manuals. So this is it. This is what you do. And I know how busy you are during this time. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time with this introduction part. Let's get down to brass tacks. All right.
You are right. This is what we do, and thank you, Marissa, for the introduction, because I appreciate it. A lot of people don't understand exactly what employment defense attorneys do, but you're right. We represent companies and we help them from the beginning, whether it's creating a manual or policy, then providing some training on those manuals and policies, to what happens when those policies are not followed correctly. We help them with any defense of any types of cases, whether it be in state court, federal court, or the federal agencies. But if you want more information, you can always reach out to me, and I'm happy to talk to you about what we do.
Awesome. Okay, so at the end of the interview, I'll definitely let you give out all your contact information, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people eager to speak with you. So the new law, I don't even know what it's called, that was just recently passed by Congress. And again, let me back up by saying, I want people to understand this is like a moving target a little bit, because
Right.
law passed very quickly, and we're all kind of playing catch up, even the attorneys. So I think it's, again, wonderful that you guys have taken the lead on this and actually clarified things that other lawyers are just completely confused on, and it would take them forever to catch up because this isn't what they do. So I want everyone who's watching this to understand this is current as of today, March 20th. And if you're watching this video 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now, things may have changed, because things are changing almost on a daily basis, it seems like, with local laws, with federal laws. So I want to make that clear. If you are watching this video, this is current as of today and may not be applicable in the near future even. So tell us about the law and, who does it apply to, I think is a big, big concern for so many.
So the law was passed federally. It was passed by Congress officially on March 18th, and the president signed it that evening. It's called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. We call it FFCRA, or because we like to use abbreviations for everything. The law, as it was initially proposed by the House, was changed on a few major points before being signed by the Senate. So what we thought was going into law on Monday night changed by Tuesday morning. So Marisa's absolutely right. This is changing almost momentarily. So make sure you follow up and get updated advice with regard to anything related to the coronavirus pandemic. So who does this act apply to? It applies to businesses with fewer than 50 employees and all public sector agencies. So if you're a city or a municipality, regardless of whether or not you have 500 employees, it's going to apply to you.
Sorry, I want to interrupt for a second. You said 50, it applies to people with less than 50. Did you mean less than 500?
I'm sorry, I said, sorry, it's been a very long day. I meant less than 500 employees. I'm used to the FMLA, which is 50 or more. So the leave is for those with fewer than 500 employees. Now, as I'll get into, I'm sure Marisa will ask me, but there is going to be an exception for those businesses who have less than 50 that can try to argue a hardship exception to this act. But generally, it's going to apply to all businesses that have fewer than 500 employees.
Okay, and all municipalities and government agencies?
Yes, regardless of whether they have one employee or 2 employees or 500.
Okay, and to be clear, again, I'm kind of trying to simplify this as much as I can, because I don't want to assume people understand, the legalities of things. There are local, state employment laws, and there are federal employment laws. This is obviously a federal employment law, which means it applies to the entire country. Is there any exception for employers in Florida, or is this just a complete, 100% application to every state?
Currently, this is a complete 100% application to every state. There are some exceptions for healthcare providers and first responders. So, for example, if you own a hospital or a clinic and things that are of that nature, you're going to be exempt from this. But otherwise, everyone in the United States is subject to this law. Now, there have been talks of the state coming up with a similar law to give more to employees. Because the way it works, and I don't want to get too technical, but when the federal government enacts a law, it gives rights to employees, and then the state can then give more rights to the employees, not the employers, to the employees, if they wish to do so.
Right. They cannot take away the rights, but they can add to them, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So to be clear, this does not apply, or sorry, it might apply to those who have less than 50 employees, but they have a plausible argument that there is a hardship and therefore it should not apply. Is that correct?
Yeah, the regulations should be out. So it will provide all the definitions that are vague, hopefully, and it will provide guidance on the hardship requirement for those businesses with under 50 employees.
Excellent. Okay. So I think a big question is, I'm an employer. I can't afford this. Like, what do I do?
So if you're an employer and you're closing your business, or you're doing layoffs, this does not apply. This is technically a 2-part act for leave. It provides an expansion to the Family Medical Leave Act, and it provides sick leave for employees. If, however, you're laying off employees because you can't make payroll or you can't sustain the business, or you're just closing your business for 2 weeks, this would not kick in.
Okay, I think that's an important distinction. I was not aware of that. I know people are, screaming about how this law is going to, take them out of business, basically. So that's, I'm sure, a huge relief for many business owners out there to hear that. So basically, if you're laying people off, you're okay. This is for people who are maintaining their employees as is during the pandemic.
Correct. And requiring them the employees are prohibited or precluded from working because of one of the reasons identified in the Act. For example, the Family Medical Leave Act extension portion deals with those employees who will have to take care of their children due to school closures because of the coronavirus, right? So in order to get those 12 weeks, of which the first 10 days are unpaid, but the remaining weeks are paid at 2/3% of what the employee makes, that it's only applicable for employees who will be home to take care of their children based on school closures. The Paid Sick Leave Act, which gives 2 weeks of paid leave, is a little broader in the respect that it applies to employees who will be quarantined, who have been advised that they have the symptoms, things of that nature, as well as those caring for an individual, or it includes those caring for an individual who is sick, right? And also for caring for your son or daughter if the school is closed. So that's 2 weeks of paid leave. And what employers are required to do, if the employee is in the area of the caring for the son or daughter, which would trigger the FMLA leave, the extended FMLA leave, they're required to give the 2 weeks paid pursuant to the Sick Leave Act portion of it, and then kick into the FMLA 2/3 portion.
Okay, even I'm confused at this point. So let me clarify. If you are a parent and you are an employee and you have to stay home with your child, not because your child is sick, but because your child's school has been closed because of coronavirus, then you have to wait the 10 days to get paid, or you don't have to wait the 10 days to get paid?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
if technically under the FMLA portion of the Act, you would have to wait the 10 days to get paid. However, the Act has a second part that's going to kick in regardless, and it provides for 2 weeks of paid leave because that's also a protected category that triggers the 2 weeks of paid leave. So technically, yes. So that's what's so complicated about these laws, right? So technically, the first 10 days are unpaid, but they really are not, because you're going to be using another portion of the Act to pay for those 2 weeks in full. And if an employee is part-time, you would be paying the employee the part-time equivalent of that.
Okay, so you've answered one of my next questions, which was, does this apply to part-time employees?
It does apply to part-time employees, and you're just going to, prorate it so that it's the equivalent of what the employee's part-time schedule would have been.
Okay, and I'm assuming this absolutely does not apply to contract employees, also known as, I don't even like using the word employees, but contract staff, labor, whatever you want to call them, AKA 1099, people.
So independent contractors, I think, is what we usually
Thank you.
use. But if you have independent contractors, no, this is for employees. This was not something that would be, an independent contractor wouldn't be covered by this. But I would also question whether the person you have working for you is really an independent contractor, but that's a whole other video that we can get into.
We actually should film a video on that, because that's something that I'm always talking to my business owner clients about, and I think there's a lot of misunderstandings when it comes to that. So maybe we'll film another video soon about that, if you're game. Now,
Yeah,
I think you
round 2.
Yeah, exactly. I think you also answered the question of, if employers already laid people off, they're fine, because this applies to employees who are remaining on board. Okay.
Yep.
So for those who are getting laid off, I assume they will be able to file unemployment.
For those who are getting laid off, they will be able to file unemployment like they regularly do. And I know there's a lot of talk currently about the state implementing some additional measures with regard to the unemployment or reemployment assistance that is available to these individuals.
Excellent. Okay. Gosh, I'm so hoarse today. So I had a question, and I mean, I guess this is a little bit of a complex question and it's a little more of like an opinion question, but what advice do you have for, the small business owner who's anticipating a major revenue drop, but they want to do right by their employees? Like what would you tell someone who's in that position?
Well, it's interesting when you word it that way, especially I've been working for employers so long that I always try to place myself in the other position, right? We all have family members who are employees. Not everyone we know are business owners. So I like to think, what would I want for them? To do right by your employee, sometimes business owners will have to close temporarily and not pay the employee for 2 weeks, because otherwise paying those employees those 2 weeks might put the business under. So it is a very, very, very tough situation that a lot of businesses are going to be in. But I don't think that there's one right answer, because I hear a lot of media scrutiny on businesses that are not paying employees during this time and just sending them home. But the reality is that the only way that this business is going to stay afloat is going to be by taking that measure. So if this employee potentially wants a job in the future, when things hopefully go back to whatever normal may be, then this is what needs to be done. And it's unfortunate and it's sad, but it's the reality of having to keep the business afloat to, possibly feed 10 people that they're keeping on, instead of closing and not being able to do anything for anyone. So I think you have to look at the long-term picture and the reality of what is sustainable for that particular business. And in some cases, it might be just sending employees home without pay. And in those cases, there is unemployment that employees can apply for. And I think that's what a lot of businesses are doing. They're technically laying off these employees so that they can apply for this unemployment to stay afloat.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think, just to like, put into simpler terms, everyone's going to kind of make a sacrifice, because if the business owner is closing their business for 2 weeks, they're probably not getting paid either. So it's kind of like, all right, we all got to take this hit for a few weeks so that we can all eat in a couple of weeks, rather than let's get paid for 2 weeks and then not again for, indefinitely, right?
Exactly. And I'm not trying to make light of the situation, but there are some retail companies and grocery stores that are now hiring. So I know a lot of local businesses like La Cajeta and Versailles, they're partnering with Serranos to help, their employees. So I think that was I was very touched by that. And I used to work with the Val's family before. So it's very consistent with who they are as employers. So I think if any of your businesses have any connections to some of these retail and they want to, suggest for their employees or assist them in any way, I think that would be a good way to do right by them in another way.
Absolutely. We actually shared that information on our Facebook page last night because we were so awed by, not just the creativity, obviously, of that solution, but but by, the caring for the employees. It's such a wonderful solution. And I really encourage business owners during this time, like, you got to get creative, you have to think about ways to solve what's a really difficult, and sometimes getting creative is the way to do that.
Right. I mean, it does apply to you to the extent that you would be subject to the law. But if you're closed, you're closed. There's nothing you can do.
Okay, good. And are there any exclusions that people should know about?
Oh, we talked about the healthcare providers and first responders, and there'll be more guidance in the regulations as to that. What is a healthcare provider? Because I know some nursing homes might be healthcare providers and things of that nature. So we're going to look for that once the regulations come out.
Okay, excellent. I wish I had turned off the TV sooner, because this seems to have done the trick, but then my 3-year-old would probably be part of this.
Yes.
We're all making do working at home. Now, are there any other requirements that we haven't discussed that employers should know about?
employers should know that there's going to be a posting requirement. The same way we have to post about the minimum wage and FMLA, those who are subject to regular FMLA, there's going to be a posting requirement where you have to post these rights for employees. The Department of Labor hasn't issued the posters yet, and they're working on them, but they have said that they will have them by April 2nd.
Okay, so these are like the posters that you see in the break room at all offices telling you what your rights are with the cast and stuff. Okay, got it.
Yeah. This is another poster to add to those posters.
Exactly. So I'm just going to run through real quick because we had so many connectivity issues, and you stop me and correct me if I get something wrong. So the law applies to employers who have less than 500 employees, and if you have less than 50 employees, we're kind of waiting on details as to what hardship exceptions will be accepted as for those smaller businesses. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Okay. And then if you've already laid someone off, you're fine. If you have to lay someone off, you're fine. This is for people who want to keep their staff employed. They will have to follow these guidelines.
That is correct. But I'm just going to mention one thing because you mentioned layoffs. Employers who have more than 100 employees, if they're going to lay off more than 50 employees, and that's 33% of their staff or more, they have to give WARN notices, which is a notice to employees and the government that they're laying off this number of employees. So if there is such mass layoffs, there's more requirements that may be in effect. So I just wanted to, just a quick note, because I don't want to get into that because that's a very deep rabbit hole, but that is something to take into consideration.
Okay, well, I mean, if you have that many employees, then you should absolutely have someone like you on retainer, as far as I'm concerned, to make sure you're following all the rules. And really any employer should, but certainly someone with that many employees can afford to pay for all the advice that they need, I would say, and make sure that they're doing the right thing and following the law and doing right by their employees. So people who have been laid off can claim unemployment, and as you said, there may be greater benefits for these people, and we're kind of in wait and see mode on that. You recommended, you brought up the point that some small businesses are going to have to close temporarily in order to be able to have jobs for their people when, things get back to normal a little bit. And so that might actually be a counterintuitive way of helping your employees. It's better to shut down if, keeping your staff on for 2 weeks is going to end your business, basically.
Yep, absolutely. It doesn't seem to make sense for a lot, but it's just the realities of it.
Yeah. I think it's the penny wise, pound foolish thing. You definitely, don't kill yourself to feed people for 2 weeks when by not doing that, you feed them for 2 months, 2 years, whatever it's going to be. So that's a great point. Independent contractors are not protected by this law. Unsurprisingly, part-time employees are, which is wonderful. They will be required to receive payment for the same amount as usual. The law is a federal law. Florida may or may not issue more laws that will protect employees, not employers, more. And I'm just looking through my notes here. You said the exclusions, there may be exclusions to healthcare. There are exclusions to the healthcare industry, but we're not exactly sure who that is yet.
Right.
And finally, there will be posters printed soon and sent, I'm assuming, to employers to post signage, I guess, when people are actually able to go back to work.
What I would recommend is that the employers check the Department of Labor website, because they'll probably just put a link so that you can print it locally. That's what I would assume, given the crunch time. Right.
Perfect. Excellent advice. So is there anything else, that you think employers need to know?
No, I think, I think what I'm telling my clients is, be patient and be graceful with yourselves. It's hard for you as employers. I know many of you care for your employees a lot, and it's hard. And it's also very hard for them. So some employees might say things right now that they don't mean. Don't take it personally.
Yeah, I've been giving the same advice to my business owner clients, and also not just to extend themselves grace, to extend their employees grace. If your
Right.
employees are working virtually, you're going to have a different mindset about, how you're measuring people, how much productivity you're going to expect from them, and the fact that they're not going to be on, 9 to 5. It's just not going to happen if they're home with their kids,
Yep.
or their parents or whoever they may be taking care of. So anyway, I know you have to go. I am so grateful that you took the time to educate our audience, and I, will let you get back to work because you are basically a first responder at this point. So thank you so much, Suhaill. If you can, please let people know what is the best way to get in touch with you.
Thank you, Marisa, and thank you so much for having me on. I know you're always encouraging me to do things like this, and you are an inspiration to me. So I want to thank you, and to most of us that know you. So if anyone has any questions, you can reach me. My office line is connected to my cell phone, so the number is 305-445-7801, and my email address is S as in Sam, Morales, Morales, at A as in Allen, N as in Norden, B as in Blue, law.com.
Excellent. And I will make sure to post your contact information when this goes up on social media, just in case. I apologize to everyone watching for the connectivity issues. Disney Plus kind of took over there for a little while, and hopefully you're able to get all the information you needed. I did run through everything we covered when we got the connectivity right back. So if you feel you missed something, you probably didn't, as long as you heard that quick fire summary at the end there. All right. Well, thank you, Suhaill, and we will be in touch. And I think we should do this more often because we have the same clients, and I think this is a great collaboration. And I really encourage other businesses to collaborate to help people, because this is the time.
It is. Thank you, Marisa.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye.